All right, so welcome, Sally, again to the Zoom room. Nice to see you here. Yeah, I think let's just dive into today's teaching. I've got an email to go through, and also the lesson. We'll see how much we can get through. Okay, so let me just get this live stream thing going quickly, and then I'll share my screen with you. All right. Okay, where's that live stream? There we go. That's where it is. Okay. Yeah, so anything to share?
No, just I asked for guidance as the lesson suggested today, and all my appointments changed. Everyone moved, everything swished around. So it's quite traumatic.
And did that make way for the session to happen, for you to join? Or
yeah, it's made lots of different things happen. Yeah. It was a bit discombobulating because it was like, oh, it was nothing static. Everybody was like, moving around. It's like, oh goodness me. There's just one thing there's just one thing that hasn't settled where it's going to fit into the schedule. So you've just reminded me. I'll ask for guidance on that one as well.
Right. Okay.
Logistics in the physical world, how to get one thing to there before that person leaves, before that person comes. And yes, I noticed a tendency in me to go, so what physically can I do? How can I transport that there? And where will I put it in the meanwhile? And actually it's nothing to do with that, is it?
Yeah, it's about asking for guidance on another level, and then you may be guided to take practical action. But I think it's always about first and foremost saying, okay, let me hand it over. Let me just be quiet. Let's ask. Ask. That's really what today's quote and lesson are all about. If you need help, then ask, and then be open to listening to the answer. No good asking and then going, well, I'll handle it. It's to get quiet, ask, which is letting go of your own need to control, isn't it? So the ego likes to control our lives and say, no, we'll do it this and this way, based on your past conditioning, what you've learned as a human being in this life and maybe previous lives. That's conditioning. Okay, then you respond based on that conditioning because you think that response is appropriate. And this is saying, well, actually, maybe it's not. Maybe some of that past learning, like let's say you've learned a skill or something, that could be used by the Holy Spirit. But the decision as to what to do should always be inspired. You should ask for guidance. Say, okay, so I'm not coming from my conditioned past and my programming and my separate self. I'm completely present. I'm open. Anything's possible. So you tell me. And then be open to listening, even if it tells you something that your ego doesn't want to hear, because the ego will never want to hear it. Be open to, okay, well, if that's what you say, and it really, you've got to check, does it feel right? Does that really sit? Is it peaceful? Does it feel like the Holy Spirit, which is, a big part of this mind training? What does it actually feel like for you? So you start to learn, okay, well, this is what guidance feels like from the Holy Spirit, and this is what the ego feels like, and they're very different. And you learn the difference, and then you have an accurate way of making decisions, don't you? Because it's like, well, the feeling guides you. Most people haven't got a clue; they don't know. No one can tell you. This is your own spiritual practice and life lessons that teach you this. So that's one of the big reasons why we practice. To let go of our own guidance, our own need to control, and then open up to the Holy Spirit to be able to give us quite specific guidance. Yeshua says, well, the Holy Spirit can translate your needs, although it realizes they're not real. It can actually help you with specific things in this world as a way of showing you that it can help you and guide you home. So it gains your trust. He famously took Helen Schuckman. She said she needed a dress or something. He took her shopping. He said, okay, I'll show you exactly where to go to get exactly the dress you want. Now, that wasn't to meet her egoic need. That was to show her that the guidance was there, that she could actually rely on him, on this presence, to meet all of her needs. And that's why he gave her that experience, to build her trust, or part of the development of trust. Because too often people say, well, you need some ego to manage in the world. Have you heard that argument before? I've heard it many times. Oh, no, but you need some ego because you can't do it all on spirit. And that, of course, is a fallacy. That's how the ego maintains its grip on your mind. Because the Holy Spirit can guide you in the practical aspects of life as well, if you allow it to. And you don't exclude those. Oh, no, well, that's an ego issue. I've got to, we're talking about finances now. We're talking about relationships. So we're talking about, whatever it is, a court case or something that seems to be, well, the Spirit can't handle that. And, it can handle anything. That's the point. It's like giving everything to its guidance and saying, okay, I'm not excluding any aspects of my life. And that takes, as he says, great learning. It takes great learning to realize that everything is helpful. Whatever's happening anywhere in your life is actually helpful to you, and can be, you can receive the guidance to help you to deal with it effectively from the Holy Spirit. Okay, so that little precursor, I'm just going to share my screen, and we can go into the quote, which is all about asking for guidance. Lovely quote. I maybe I haven't shared it before, but it was very appropriate. So here we go. One of the most famous quotes from the Bible that Yeshua was quoted as saying in the Gospel of Matthew. So do you want to read that?
Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. To the one who knocks, the door will be opened.
Very, very much quoted, passage, really saying the answer is there. Most Christians would interpret that as, prayer. You're going to ask for what you want, but that's not what he means. It's not just what you want. It's to ask for guidance. Say, I don't actually know what I want. I don't actually know necessarily how to solve this problem or what's in my best interests. But I'm asking for help. I'm asking for guidance in this situation without presupposing what that should be. That's really the thing. So the wrong way of praying would be, well, I think I need this, so therefore I'm going to pray for this. I'm going to ask for this. But you've already made an assumption as to what you think you need. And so you've limited the Holy Spirit or excluded it entirely that way. It's just about asking and allowing that voice to guide you, and can do that in many ways. It can speak to you directly. You can get a voice in your head. Some people experience it that way, just words coming to you. It can be a feeling, a thought. It can come from someone else. Someone else might say something to you. You could read a book. You could get an email. You can see a signpost. You can watch a movie. So many ways, so many channels that are open. If you ask, and it can happen at the most unexpected times. Not necessarily. I get a lot of guidance in meditation, but not necessarily always. Sometimes it just pops in. I remember once I was looking for guidance on, I think I shared that issue with the money story, and this guy taking money that wasn't really his, and I was, well, should I try and recover this, or should I just let it go? It's a bit inturbulated, and then suddenly I was chopping vegetables. I suppose it's quite a meditative thing to do, and then the guidance just pops in, and I just have a feeling. It was like a feeling, and then there was a voice that said, well, just leave it to me. Just the words came, just leave everything to me. I'll sort it out. Don't worry. And so, that's the way it came to me in that instance. But it can happen differently for different people, and in different situations, it can happen differently. So there's no limit on the way that the Holy Spirit can communicate. It can use any channel. But I think the key here is you must be open. It cannot come when your mind is closed. If you've already decided what it is you should do, or you're so enturbulated by the problem, and your mind is worrying and consumed with that, that it's closed to guidance, then, and you don't ask, then how can it speak to you? Your mind is too cluttered. So the idea of asking is to be quiet, open yourself, listen and listen. And that, typically that's associated with practices like meditation, breathing and quietness and walking, and just giving yourself some openness and some spaciousness to allow yourself to listen. And then you may or may not make a specific request. If it's a problem that's troubling you, then maybe you do. But remember what he said in terms of prayer as well, that true prayer is really about forgiveness. Let me just bring this up, actually, because that kind of adds a little bit to the story. Just get this up there, and we'll go prayer. Let's see if we can find prayer. And I'll find this quote for you, which talks about next. That's the daily prayer. Not that one. There we go. I think this one. There we go. Can you read that? Prayer is it? You want to read that?
Prayer is a way of asking for something. It's the medium of miracles. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have.
So that puts another angle on prayer, doesn't it? I'm not asking for anything specific. I'm actually just asking to find what I already have. I'm asking to be able to let go of whatever the issue is that's troubling me and see beyond that to the truth. So inherent in any asking would be, okay, but I'm letting go of my misperception of the situation. You ask when you let go, and then you be quiet and you listen for guidance. And the two kind of go hand in hand. Without the letting go, how can you be quiet and listen for the guidance? Whereas I think a lot of people, Christians especially, misinterpret this and go, oh, well, this is, God's like a vending machine. You can just ask for whatever you want and you'll get it. But that's a misinterpretation. It needs to be seen in the context of Yeshua's whole teachings. No, actually, it's about being quiet, letting go of what you think you want and need, and then opening yourself to the guidance that comes. Okay, so if you read the first paragraph.
In today's inspirational quote from Yeshua, recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, he tells you to ask the Holy Spirit, and if you prefer alternative terms, your inner guide, higher self, or intuition that remembers perfect love, for help when you need it and assures you that you will receive the guidance you need when you ask for it. If this advice and even the language he uses sound familiar, it's because other spiritual teachers I've quoted recently used very similar language. For example, Joseph Campbell, who, remember, discovered and formulated the hero's journey based on his studies of the myths and legends of many seemingly different cultures, religions, philosophies, and spiritual traditions, talks about the power of following your bliss, a term he used to refer to an inspired purpose that activates a flow of positive, helpful energy in the hero or heroine's life. In this quote, follow your bliss. If you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that's been there all the while waiting for you, and the life you ought to be living is the one you are living. When you can see that, you begin to meet people who are in the field of your bliss, and they open the doors to you. I say follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you didn't know they were going to be. If you follow your bliss, doors will open for you that wouldn't have opened for anyone else.
Yeah. So interesting language. Maybe he used the doors analogy because of the Yeshua's quote, which is quite well known, or maybe it's just kind of coincidence. I don't know. But very similar language. Doors will open for you that wouldn't have wouldn't open for anyone else, or wouldn't have been there. You didn't follow your bliss, and your bliss is this flow of energy, flow of a good feeling, love, peace, joy. What fills you up, what makes you feel happy, joyful. That then taps you into a field. We want to look at quantum field theory, a field of energy, of guidance that's coming through that is like that frequency. So the highest kind of manifestation, the way of, a lot of people get obsessed with manifestation. The highest way of manifesting is to be in the frequency of joy and gratitude, not necessarily to ask for anything specific, just to stay in that high state of mind. And then you allow, if you stay in that state, your prayer is really the feeling, the underlying feeling, the state you're in is your prayer to the universe. So that energy gets transmitted into the quantum field, and then will tend to bring back things that are similar, of a like quality. So the greatest way to pray is just be in that energy, joyful, peaceful. And if you're not, then let go of what's blocking that flow and get back into the flow. And then the miracles and the synchronicities and the guidance as to what to do and where to go just start to happen, and you get into the flow. So you can see how forgiveness or letting go is critical, because if you can't let go of the blocks, then that joy is blocked to you, and you're not tapping into that frequency, and you're not radiating that out. You're not programming the quantum field with that energy. And so then you block the flow, and the synchronicities and the miracles don't happen, because they happen because of the energy state you're in predominantly. Does that make sense?
Mm.
So, there's a scientific, the reason this works is because we have, everything is mind. We're living in a great thought rather than a great machine, as James Jeans, a quantum physicist, says. Everything is mind. We live in the quantum field, the morphic field, whatever you want to call it, which is responsive to thought and emotion. But very responsive to thought and emotion, actually, because that's what it's made up of. The whole thing is a belief system and a projection of thought or belief outwards. So that's what created the so-called universe, as we know. So it's very responsive to thought and emotion, whether that's positive or negative. You can use it either way. Following your bliss is the most positive way of programming the quantum field and allowing good things, happy things, beneficial things to start happening for you without you necessarily trying to make them happen. They just sort of fall into place. So it goes beyond the idea of conscious manifestation, where you go, right, I'm going to set a goal, set an intention, and I'm going to make that happen. And then I'm going to decide, okay, well, to get to the goal, I need to do this and this and this. And I plan it all out. And, we've all done that, haven't we, at some point? You did traditional goal setting. And it just doesn't work, because there's no way you can possibly know. You know, maybe you could do that for something like a task you've got to do in the next day or week or something, but like any kind of longer term goal, you just can't know. There's no way you can know, you know, what's going to come in the future. So you could meet someone, something could happen that completely changes everything. So this is the, you know, the alternative to that very controlled, quite linear, narrow goal setting mindset. Just open to the flow by letting go. Let go and find your flow, essentially, you know, which is kind of the tagline, the Art of Letting Go community. Let go and find your flow. And that flow will take you where you need to be for your happiness, and ultimately for your salvation, your enlightenment, to awaken completely from the dream, because that's the purpose of it. The happy dream and the synchronicities and the miracles are just signposts on the journey. Those aren't the end. Those are the means. Whereas with the ego, it will make the goals into the end. Say, well, yes, you know, you want to achieve that specific finite goal, because then you'll be happy, and then it's the end. And that's ridiculous. You know, it's a finite game that you're playing, which will always disappoint you, because when even if you do achieve that, you'll go, well, actually life continues, and I'm not actually happy for very long. I'm not really satisfied. So then I need to look to the next goal and the next one. And so you keep looking to the future for your fulfillment, which is a delusion. And that's, you know, the basis of the Buddhist insight, that desire causes all suffering. You keep on this track, desiring, and you never find your flow, and you never find your bliss. And you don't really listen to the guidance. You're just listening to your ego's guidance, telling you, well, go and get that and do that, because that's going to make you happy. So to follow your bliss requires that you've got to let go of the ego's thought system to do it, which is kind of the whole point of the hero's journey. You let go and you trust, and then that the hero's journey is the undoing of the ego's thought system, and how that plays out for you in your unique life and dream is your hero's journey.
What's coming to my mind is I had some guidance this morning to professionally run transformation games, and my resistance was so strong. It's like, no, it takes all day, and you have to be so on it and so focused, because each person's playing their own game. It's like everybody's on their own hero's journey in the game all at the same time. So if you've got 4 people, I'm overseeing 4 people's hero's journey at the same time. And like all this resistance came up, and it was like, oh, and then and it was like, it was nothing about the money. It was like, but it was like, if I played it for fun, it would be no problem. But if I paid it, if I got paid to do it, it wouldn't be fun. It would be difficult. So I've got some more to do on that subject. The guidance is persistent and clear, and I am persistently going, no, it sounds like hard work. So normally following my bliss is really easy, because the idea comes up and I go, oh yeah, great, oh yeah, run with that, oh that's lovely. But I presume there's more depth to this one, because I'm getting in the way of it.
Yeah, well then there's a block somewhere in your own mind that's come up to be healed, which is, you know, part of the journey.
Yeah.
You're not always going to be in flow. Part of the hero's journey is you're going to have obstacles and difficulties, and you know, some resistance, as we can see here, challenges and temptations and trials. So when he says follow your bliss, again, people can misinterpret and go, oh well, I should be in bliss all the time then. It doesn't mean that. You got to dig deeper, and it's saying, no, actually you're going to have plenty of challenges and temptations, but what you're following is this you know, this ultimate happiness and peace and joy. So you get through those, And on the other side of that, there is a very blissful way of living. And even then, challenges still come, but they don't really bother you. You're just able to stay in that, very joyful state, no matter what seems to be happening. So it's all part of, the challenges and temptations are part of the journey, integral part of the journey. You just got to welcome them and say, okay, well, what's this showing me? How can I learn from this? How can I let go? Re-enter the flow, and then you've undone another part of the ego. And when you overcome a block, especially if it's a big block, you move forward in the journey. And spiritually, you've moved forward, and often that moves you forward, on the timeline of what needs to happen. That can often, change circumstances quite dramatically when you release a block. So,
yeah, looks like that will be a good one.
Yeah. Well, have a look at that. It's the last section of the psychotherapy supplement, which is on the question of payments. So if we have time, we can
Yeah,
read
so
that.
it was around that. It was definitely on that subject. Yeah.
That's really, dealing with exactly what you're talking about.
Mm.
Okay, so Carl Jung called this flow of helpful energy synchronicity. Another more recent psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, called it quite aptly flow. I read that because
it's really clever you can say it.
Well, it's a bit of practice. Csikszentmihalyi. Mihaly.
Oh, yeah.
Not it's Hungarian, not the easiest one to say. And so they're saying the same thing. Joseph Campbell, whether you call it the hero's journey and following your bliss, or you call it synchronicity, or you call it flow, just 6 of one and half a dozen of another, just different names for the same really flow of energy. And this goes back to the Vedas. The ancient sages of India identified this idea of flow, that there are only 2 symptoms of enlightenment. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, I just thought of something. Let me write it down.
Okay, I'll read it. There are only 2 symptoms of enlightenment, according to Vedanta, which is one of the 6 schools of Hindu philosophy. That a transformation is taking place within you toward a higher consciousness. So in other words, you becoming more enlightened, you're waking up. The first symptom is that you stop worrying. So that's kind of the precursor, because worry clutters your mind and it stops you from receiving guidance, and it blocks the flow. So things just don't bother you anymore. You become lighthearted and full of joy. Okay. So now you see, letting go leads to a state of joy. And that joy then allows the second symptom to start happening more and more. The second symptom is you count some more and more meaningful coincidences in your life, more and more synchronicities, which is a term that Carl Jung coined to describe this kind of coincidence, but that it's not random. Coincidence is not random coincidence, meaningful coincidences that seem to be aligned with the way you're thinking. We've all experienced these, haven't you? You think of someone and then they call you, or you're asking for something, and then it just pops up. You mentioned, what was that? You mentioned the other day you got the check for your first kinesiology course. Just comes, these kinds of things. That's an example of a synchronicity. Just very, very helpful. Exactly what you need when you need it. And this accelerates to the point where you actually experience the miraculous. Well, each one of these meaningful coincidences or synchronicities is the miraculous. It's tapping into another domain that transcends time and space. And that's how it then gets expressed in this world, in the world of time and space and perception, as a miraculous occurrence on the external level. we look at the integral model again, remember there's the interior aspect, so that would be the change of mind, the transformation, and then the external aspect would be the synchronicities and flow that you can actually observe. Okay, so there's a change in behavior, there's a change in circumstances, something happens, an outcome happens that you can then tie to the change of mind. And as we discussed, this is necessary. The external aspect of the miracle, synchronicity, flow. It's an inner state, but the external aspect is necessary to confirm to you that you're on the right track. You go, oh, okay, so this is actually working. Okay, let me keep doing more of it. Let me go deeper into it. If it didn't work, and this wasn't built into the kind of structure of time, space, of this universe, then there would be no way out, would there? You couldn't escape, because you would be doing all this inner work and then nothing would change externally. And you go, well, nothing really matters. It doesn't matter what I think. My reality is just the same. So it's showing you that this law, fundamental law of mind, that as within, so without. As you've decided within, as your inner state is, so is your external world. And this exterior quadrant shows you the effects. It's the projection of your own mind, which then is used by the Holy Spirit to awaken you positively, rather than the ego using it negatively as a defense against the truth to reinforce the negative patterns of thought and behavior. So you see how it's all linked together. Whatever aspect you look at comes down to the same thing, doesn't it? There is one simple truth, and then there's the illusion. And there are different thought systems that don't marry at all. Okay, so happy with that. There's two symptoms, and you can see why they're connected. The first symptom, worry, letting go of worry, leads you to find that happy, light-hearted feeling, that joy, which then programs the quantum field and allows the synchronicities and the miracles to start happening more and more. So it's necessary in order to experience the synchronicity and the flow consistently to not be worried about the future. Worry takes you out of the now, as we say here. So the first symptom of enlightenment is the awakening. It's a lack of compulsive worry. So most people, I think that's probably the modern disease, really. We call it stress. Stress is just fear. Stress is an expectation that something will go wrong. Something is going wrong, something will go wrong. It's a perception of some kind of external threat. Okay, and that's a quote from Deepak Chopra. Perception of some kind of external threat. So worry is, I'm perceiving some kind of external threat, usually in the future, but it's coming into my now, and it's consuming my mind, and I'm now thinking about it, and I'm feeling the emotion, and I'm feeling the negative energy of it, and so it's affecting my present state. So it takes you away from the present moment, which is the whole point. That's what the ego is trying to do. So you're not aware of the present, because you can only be aware of love in the present moment. It makes both the past and the future real in your mind. Well, why do you worry? Because of the past. Oh, it's something's gone wrong in the past. I've failed. This has happened that wasn't good, so it might happen again in future. So based on my past conditioning, I now project that into the future, and now I'm in past future all the time, and I cover over the present. The present is nowhere. And so this attaches us to the timeline the ego has invented, which is shown here. So this timeline is various events in our lives, and the ego is the red arrows trying to get us to attach our minds to this linear timeline. So this is real, this is really happening, what's really happened. So the past is real and the future is real, and my mind is now really consumed with the past and the future. So I'm very attached to this whole timeline, and my story is on the timeline. So I'm attached to my story, and my story is my self-concept, and this is how the illusion is perpetuated. And that obviously leads to death. The timeline leads you one way, and that's eventually to death, where none of it matters. You die, And if your mind is still consumed by all of those false thoughts and emotions, then you don't go to heaven. You skip pure formless awareness of perfect love, and you come back, accumulated egoic energy or karma of all these thoughts and emotions will bring you back into a human life so that you can do the same thing again and have another experience on the timeline with all the ego, psychological, emotional attachment to the drama that happens on the timeline. And until you start transcending that, going above the battleground, which is what forgiveness or letting go does, there's no hope. You're attached to the timeline, and you will continue to suffer and to die over and over and over again. So you can see how this then is related to, the eternal, the whole program, the bigger picture of your flow, you're following your bliss, letting go. It's all related to ultimately salvation or enlightenment, escaping from the dream, time and space. And all of this is to serve that. You find your bliss, you follow your flow, and all of this, so that ultimately you can correct your mind, heal your mind, and transcend the ego, undo the ego entirely, and finally, leave this whole place behind. That's what it's all for. So salvation or enlightenment or awakening, whatever language you want to use, is your only function. Okay, so any comments or questions about that?
I've had lots of downloads while you were talking.
Good. You want to share anything?
We're just all about the transformation game, how to do it, how to set it up, how to charge, how not to charge, how to run it, who to ask for help.
Great. Yeah. So if you get out of the worrying and the resistance, then you open the flow, because guidance comes from the source. So the Holy Spirit is the remembrance of this domain, perfect love, and it can still perceive. You can look at each situation that you're faced with, a seeming challenge or problem, and you can perceive it, but now you're perceiving it from the perspective of oneness. So you're not really seeing it as a problem. It's like everything is still one, everything's okay. I'm not losing myself in the problematic consciousness of the ego. And so I'm allowing then the Holy Spirit to give me helpful guidance. I'm not blocking that out. I'm not resisting it. As long as you're attached to the ego story, you block that out. You can't hear that voice because you're so attached to the timeline and the story, which is really a very problematic story. Everyone's life is problematic, isn't it? It's filled with problems, situations, dramas, and the more attached you get to it, the more real those situations and problems and dramas seem to be. And then you can't hear the guidance that's coming from above. It wants to come through and really help you. Okay, next one, if you want to read that paragraph, as the diagram shows.
As the diagram shows, worrying about the future is really just another part of the death wish that is the ego, because worrying continuously keeps your mind bound to time, which always leads to death in the end. By contrast, the Holy Spirit, or remembrance of love, helps you let go of your worries, allowing your natural state of joy to arise spontaneously in your mind and guide your thoughts, words, and actions. Because joy is a state that powerfully and positively affects the quantum field in which we all seem to live as human beings, joy consistently experienced leads to the second symptom of enlightenment, being the regular occurrence of miracles, or what we translate as corrections in our alternative non-Christian language, and what Carl Jung called synchronicities, and Michaela Csikszentmihalyi. Say it again so I can. How do you say it?
It's like Csikszentmihalyi.
Csikszentmihalyi, called flow, and Yeshua refers to as miracles, beneficial events and strange coincidences, such as seemingly random meetings with people that give us a deeper understanding of truth and benefits us in so many ways, in so many other ways.
Yeah. So it's all the same thing. All of these teachers are pointing to the same thing. They just use different language. When you start to see that, and you start to see, look, there's only one truth. It's a universal truth. There's a universal experience of it. And when you start tapping into this, the experience is remarkably similar across all cultural and other kinds of differences, and across time. You know, the mystics, the masters, the sages speak of really the same kinds of experiences. And this idea of flow, living in the flow of life, the happy dream, miracles happening, things just working out for you, is one of those experiences, as the Vedanta notes.
I had a miracle just before I came on the call. Well, two miracles, I suppose they're all connected up. So the original miracle was I've got this Airbnb flat, and I knew it kind of needed refurbishment. Couldn't really get into it. It just didn't seemed expensive to do it. So somebody went into the flat and I don't want to say wrecked it, but precipitated it needing to be refurbished, and so they weren't willing to pay for it. So I've claimed on the insurance, and now the insurance are going to pay for the refurbishment, and so that was all good, because I could see that was the Holy Spirit saying, yeah, go on, change the energy of the place. It felt like there was old energy in the place. The furniture that was there was old energy. So now I've ordered new furniture, and it feels like it's, divinely inspired to do so. And then the furniture, somebody's going in to decorate it on Monday, and then I wanted to get the furniture at the same time, but it was on a long delivery, so it wasn't due until the 3rd week of February. And I just let it go. I didn't give it any thought, and it turned up today. And so it'll be ready for the guy that's decorating to build it for me. And that's like, how does that work? That's a real miracle. It was, it's gone through the factory. I've seen all the updates online where it says your order's in, it's in the process of being manufactured, and then it turns up on the doorstep today. It's like,
how does that happen? Yeah,
miracle.
exactly.
Yeah, it's not logical.
That's only due in February, so they're 2 months ahead of schedule.
Yeah, so it just makes no sense how that works. I looked at my phone and I glared at it a lot. It said delivery date, and then I look at the furniture and go, cool, how did that happen? So yeah, cool.
You can't explain it, but it's when you understand this law, you know how it happened. It's not obeying the laws of time and space. It's not logical in terms of the ego's thought system, but it's as he says, there's a demonstration of it. Miracles are the only means you have for controlling time. This world. Remember that. So there's an example. Time collapses. Suddenly 2 months is wiped out of the production schedule, which would seem to be impossible. How does that happen?
I only ordered it yesterday.
They've got a whole queue, and they've got you'd think, but somehow that's orchestrated. That someone makes a mistake, or someone decides, oh, we'll ship that one out. I mean, you can't know, but this is all orchestrated by this force power we call the Holy Spirit, in ways we can't really fathom. I mean, it's all mind, but it's able to influence, any mind in the quantum field. So that's any person, animal can be influenced by it, because it's all mind. And when we tapped in and we're asking for guidance, and we're in the kind of joyful flow. I mean, that's the interesting thing. You didn't ask, did you? You didn't say, oh, well, I'd really like for it to turn up, sooner in time.
No.
You didn't actually ask for that. You just let it go. So your true prayer there was forgiveness. You just let it go. It wasn't an issue. It's fine. Just let it go. It'll happen when it happens. And that opens the way for something like this to happen. If you'd gone, right, I really want this to turn up. I'm going to manifest this. I'm going to pray for it. I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to visualize it. I'm going to concentrate on it. It wouldn't have happened, probably.
Mm.
Because then there's a whole lot of attachment and you're not learning the lesson. That it should be easy and graceful and just flow. So that's a good demonstration of all these principles in that example. And then that's the whole point. You get an example like, oh, okay, I can see how it all works. It actually does work in practice. I can see that demonstrated. And then you go, well, I believe. These aren't just theories and principles. They actually work. So they must be true then. They work. And so then your belief in the truth gets stronger, as you experience these things, because you're seeing the evidence for them. Which is why we come here. And to go back to this point, integral model, you need the confirmation on the external. You need first of all the lessons that the mirror of your ego presents. And you need to discover what your ego is, and then you also need the confirmation that comes when those circumstances change and you start getting these beneficent events, synchronicities, flow, miracles happening. You need that in order to strengthen your belief in the truth, in who you are. So it's both looking at the ego, being able to see it through the external world, and also then see the change and see the miracles showing up, which then confirm the truth of who you are, and you start to learn more and more, believe more and more, until eventually your belief becomes knowledge. It's no longer belief, it's I know. Carl Jung actually said that at the end of his life. An interviewer asked him, well, how do you believe this or something? And he said, no, I don't believe it. I know this to be true. And that's the difference between belief and knowledge. But we start with belief. And then you progress to knowledge. And once you're at knowledge, there's no need for belief anymore, because you just know, and then you're awake, and you're enlightened. And then you're out of the domain of perception and you're into knowledge, which is above the battleground, as we can see in this diagram here. Knowledge lies here. So you've transcended perception and belief, and anything that seems to be relevant and real here is transcended. But that's a process, and you need the letting go, and you need the miracles and the flow to help you to learn this as part of the process of awakening. Okay, so I want to just guide you through a little meditation now, just a few minutes. It might actually help you with your issue, the transformation game. So try this quick mind training exercise, just to help you see this for yourself. So just close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And think back to an event in your life where you felt an inner nudge. Maybe it was a persistent call, just a feeling that kept on coming to do something. Probably wouldn't have made rational sense at the time necessarily. So bring that to mind, and then just remind yourself of what happened. So what happened when you actually listened? It's an instance where you did listen. So you listened, even if you had resistance initially, you listened to that nudge or that call. You took the action that you were guided to take. You did what you needed to do. And then how did that unfold? And then just get in touch with the feeling of that. What was that outcome like? How does it feel energetically? And my guess is the situation probably worked out well for you in a way that you couldn't have planned or predicted when you listen to the nudge. And because the nudge doesn't tell you, oh, this and this and this is going to happen. It just says, do this now. So this is one of the hallmarks of a genuine miracle or correction. It happens without your conscious intention or planning. Don't plan for the outcome. But you just choose to listen to the guidance, to your intuition. which is a remembrance of love or oneness. It's always guiding you to have experiences that lead you to a greater awareness of oneness or love, because that's what it's always trying to do. Okay, so when you're ready, open your eyes. So if you want to talk about that or share it, then by all means. Otherwise, you can move on to the next one.
So what came up was that I definitely had a nudge to do the transformation games, and put it on the back burner. And the time that I did listen to the nudges was that was really important for me was, I don't know how long ago it was, 2.5 years or something. And I had a nudge to run some 6-week courses online. And I had no idea how it was going to work out, and I had nobody to do the courses. But when I followed that guidance, it's led me now to doing year courses, and it's my greatest love, my greatest joy. So yes, I know, following the inner nudge, you just reminded me what a nice feeling that was. It's like jumping off a diving board. You don't know where your next step's going to be, but you go, all right, I'm saying yes. I hear the nudge and I'm agreeing. I'm just, I'll be the instrument. You just tell me what to do. And so yeah, I'll do the same with the transformation game.
Yeah, no, that's how it works. I experienced something very similar with the Art of Letting Go course and program. It started as, okay, I'll do a 6-week course, and then from there it evolves into a 1-year program. And if you don't listen to the first nudge to do it, then nothing happens. You can't move forward. And it can seem, if you look at it rationally, it can seem quite daunting. But if I'd gone, well, this is how much work it is, I probably would have gone, whoa, that's insane. But that doesn't tell you that. It just says, do this. This feels right. So you got to trust that guidance when you're feeling a nudge, and trust it.
It's interesting. You had the same thing, really, isn't it? 6 weeks, and you ended up doing a year, and probably for the same reason as I did. That 6 weeks it does some depth of work, but a year is much deeper.
And it's we're studying A Course in Miracles, which is a 1-year program, so you can't really leave people and say, okay, well, I've given you the intro. We've started on this course and we're 5 chapters into the text and 35 lessons into the workbook, and then you're on your own. It just doesn't feel right to do that. Off you go and enjoy and just focus on running the 6-week intro course, which I suppose I could have done. There are people who just do kind of introductory things, but it felt like, no, this actually needs to be the whole thing. Go for the whole thing. Don't compromise. Don't settle, as Steve Jobs advised in that famous speech of his at Stanford. Don't settle. Go for what you're called to do. Go for the whole thing. Even though it's a lot more time and effort, and people go, why are you spending so much time on why they don't understand. But it's like, because that's what I'm called to do. It's very simple. And so I must follow the guidance, because the Holy Spirit knows what it's doing. So this is the best business advice you could possibly have. People go, oh, well, this is all woo-woo and spiritual. No, you start to listen to the Holy Spirit in any area of your life, but and business being one of them. If you're running your own business, or even if you're working for a business, it applies equally. So you can get really helpful guidance, wise guidance on what to do and where to go, and those inspired decisions then make the difference. One decision can either help a business to flourish and prosper and thrive, or it can kill the business. And there's many examples of that. I think I've mentioned them before, but I'll mention 1 or 2 again. So most people don't know, but Kodak actually invented digital photography. 1975, a guy and he worked for Kodak, discovered this, invented it, and he took it to the sort of powers that be, the directors, and they shelved it. They said, no, this is going to hurt our film sales, so we don't want this. So that decision not being guided, listening to the ego, that killed the business, that one decision. Because 10 years later, everyone got onto the track and they were doing digital photography. Kodak got left way behind and their film sales got destroyed anyway. So that was the price they paid for not listening to guidance and listening to the ego instead. Killed the whole business, one decision. That was a multi-billion-dollar business that had taken, I don't know how long it had been going, but a long time. I think since the beginning of photography, Kodak was, so it was many decades old, and one faulty decision killed the whole thing. So this can be absolutely critical to listen to guidance. Steve Jobs, on the other hand, he gets he's looking at a graphical user interface in the early days, just sort of before the personal computer, like late 70s, and Apple had already invested a lot of money in going in a certain direction, and they were kind of a startup, so they didn't have much spare capital, and he saw this graphical user interface was developed by someone else, which was essentially what the essence of what we now have with a PC, this kind of Windows and he went, that's what we have to have in our computers, and they've gone in a different direction, and his sort of board and executive said, no, we can't afford it, because we've already invested millions in this and it's going to kill the company. And he said, well, rather we kill the company than we allow someone else to kill the company, because if we don't do this, we're finished. So he had the vision to be able to say, okay, the past is over, it's a sunk cost, let's let it go and let's move on and trust that if this is coming, this is the guidance, and we'll find a way. And of course that then led to the development of the Apple Macintosh, which was a huge success. That's what built the foundation of Apple, and now we have the world's most valuable company as a result of that single decision. Otherwise it probably would have failed. So you see how critical it can be to listen to guidance. Can absolutely be the difference between survival, thriving, and dying as a company and business. And on a personal level, these things can make a huge difference to your life. Okay, so now pause again. Close your eyes. Bring to mind, take a deep breath. And bring to mind a situation in which you felt an inner nudge or a persistent urge to do something, and you denied it. You didn't listen. Preferred to listen to the voice of reason. There was some reason that you didn't do it, which made logical sense maybe at the time, but you knew that you were denying this inner nudge. And now just think what happened. What was the outcome of that situation? How did that go? Connect with the energy of it. How did it feel mentally, emotionally? Maybe you can feel it in your body now. Just play this scenario out for a minute in your mind. Connect with the energy of it so that you kind of re-experience it. And the reason is just to get a taste of what it feels like to deny the Holy Spirit. And then you kind of connected with it, and probably not very pleasant, but you can just let it go with your breath. You don't carry it, just release it, shake it out, shake your hands out, move your body if you need to, just to shake off the state, and then open your eyes. So how did that feel?
So the one that came into mind was when I was nudged to divorce my husband, and I didn't take the nudge. And then so it led on to him making that decision and finding a new partner, and then it left a bad taste in my mouth. So yeah, that was interesting.
Whereas it could have been
I could have been empowered. I could have been empowered, and I could have taken control of the situation, and I would have felt more in my power. Yeah.
And that's that's what happens. If we don't listen, then we suffer to some degree or another, because we haven't listened. And that's not a punishment. It's not, the old idea of God punishing you for not listening is not the case. It means that you're not listening to your true self, and then the energy that you're in is not a positive energy. So because your mind is powerful, it affects the quantum field, and then things happen that are not pleasant. So the Holy Spirit's always trying to spare you difficulty. It's actually trying to help you do this more quickly and more easily with the minimum of pain and suffering. It doesn't want you to suffer. And the nudges are there to really help you on your path and help you just kind of go smoothly on your path rather than suffer. But if we're stubborn and we resist them, then, well, the tap on the shoulder didn't work, so then we have to have a little take out the baseball bat, give you a jab in the ribs. Okay, that didn't work.
That was funny because
the head.
It was funny because I kept hearing the word over and over again. It just kept going through my head: divorce, divorce, divorce. And I just had a nervous laughter about it. It's like, no, that's a bit dramatic, isn't it?
So it actually came as a word. It was a very clear,
repetitive word. Yeah. It went on for days. Yeah. But there was no reason at the time. There was nothing. No impetus. It seemed a very big deal, and I just laughed it off. And
interesting.
Live and learn, don't you?
We do. It's learning. If you can learn from that and go, okay, well, that didn't work out so well, so let me not do it again. Let me listen. Let me be guided and listen and not resist. Your life's going to go more easy, much more easily. You'll be much more in flow. And you don't have to have tough lessons. They can be gentle lessons, as he said, gentle lessons. If you're learning from the subtleties, so it's about becoming very subtle, isn't it? Okay, so yes, I just noticed that it's a subtle feeling, but I'm tapping into it. Okay, so I'm going to go with that guidance because it feels right. That subtlety is sadly lacking in a lot of people, and it's not promoted by the world. You think of how people spend their time and the kind of gross entertainment. It's like big, loud, garish TV noise. Well, where's the subtlety? How can you listen to the subtlety then of your thoughts and your emotions in that? So it requires, subtlety requires quietness, a still mind, to be able to observe the subtleties and practice. So when you're practicing letting go and you observe, okay, that's arising and I let it go. That's a subtle, sometimes it's so subtle, isn't it? It's not a big thing, but you just notice and then you let it go. So you're training your mind to tune in to the subtlety rather than something big and loud and garish. And in my experience, the ego's advice, ego's guidance is always, it doesn't feel subtle at all. There's no kind of subtlety to it whatsoever. It just feels harsh, discordant. If it's a desire, it can feel very consuming. No, I just want that. When I get that, but there's a strong kind of rather unpleasant element to it always. Whereas the Spirit's guidance, it might be very persistent, but it doesn't have the same quality. So it's more subtle. And so it's learning again to distinguish between the two. Well, what's coming from the ego and what's coming from the Spirit. And if you can determine that in each situation, then you have the best guide for decision making that you can possibly have. Your own inner guide. You know what's true and you know what's false. And that's really what we're training ourselves to do with this course and this Art to Letting Go program. Training ourselves to be able to distinguish the difference between what's true and what's false. So if we don't know, then it's a disaster. You think what is false is true and what's true is false. So completely upside down. And then all kinds of mistakes are going to happen because of it. Okay. So any thoughts on that? Comments, questions? That brings us to where we are now in the session. So we've just discussed it, done a little meditation.
I think the thing that stands out the most is to create or allow more quiet time, so the messages come through clearer, because if you're just busy and noisy head, you're not going to hear anything, are you? So yeah, I think I'll just factor in a little bit more quiet time.
Yeah. Rest, which is not something that most people know how to do. Take the quiet time to rest in whatever way. But if you look at top performers in any field, they know how to rest, and then they know how to go. Rest, and then so they pulse their energy. And in the rest times, they recover mentally, physically, emotionally, and they allow time to restore, to listen to guidance, to quieten their mind. So Steve Jobs was he did Zen meditation his whole life. Interesting. So that's why he was more tapped in. That's why he could go, okay, I'm not just going to go with the normal, reactive, oh, actually we can't do that because we're gonna, we've lost all the money we've invested in this. He was able to think outside of that very kind of narrow way, and listen to guidance, because he was doing, regular spiritual practice. And that made a huge difference, to his decisions. And Apple kind of had that energy built into it. He was, really the founding energy behind it. And that's why it was a bit of a different company. And people responded to that energy. It's like, oh, there's something different. There's something a little bit unique and a bit higher than, say, a normal, just a standard company which doesn't have that. And that's why it's probably that is why it's the world's most valuable company today. So it just goes to show you, this stuff is universally applicable, and it can have a huge impact if it gets into the hands of the right person and they use it. You just happen to be the right person in the right place at the right time, born in that area of California, just at the start of the whole tech boom and computers, and he happened to then also be a little bit more spiritually open. And then it's interesting how it all fits in, because 50 years before his birth, Paramahansa Yogananda had been told by his guru to go to the West. Said, you need to go to California. Why California? Why not New York? Why not somewhere else? You need to go to California. See, so it's all, you see how the Holy Spirit has a plan, so that people like Steve Jobs could get access to that information, and then the stuff could then be, come into much bigger consciousness through that. So there are no accidents, and it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. It's all connected. There's a flow to all of it, and that came from a spiritual master called Mahavatar Babaji, who is an unascended master. He just kind of knocks around, in a body, not in a body. He's been around for 2,000 years in the Himalayas, and so he gives the guidance to go to California and then this whole chain of events, and now we have Apple. Or would that have happened if he hadn't got the guidance to go? Who knows? Maybe not. So it's all connected. Everything, every decision is part of this process, the At-One-Man process, an interlocking chain of forgiveness and miracles. And you're part of that too. When you listen to the guidance, then you say, yes, I'm part of it. I'm willing to be used as a vehicle for this. And when you deny it, then you deny that whole process. So then you keep everyone in hell, which is quite when you frame it in those ways, people say that's such a bit dramatic, but that's the truth. So then, we have a responsibility to listen to the guidance. Otherwise, we're perpetuating the ego's thought system, which is hell. And you become an agent of the devil rather than of spirit when you resist and you deny. So remind yourself of that, when it comes to making a decision about like the transformation game or anything. It's like, okay, well, which voice am I listening to? Because that determines everything. If I listen to the voice that says don't do it, I'm unwittingly fostering guilt, sin, fear, attack, grief, suffering, pain, misery, and death in the world. That's pretty horrific. All of the pain and the suffering is now my choice when I don't listen to the guidance, which should then hopefully make you change your mind. Go, okay, that's not a good idea then. Really not a good idea. Let's just listen to the nudge and go with it, which actually is not a hard thing to do, because you'll be given the support and the guidance on the way. It just may seem to be hard, but that's just your own resistance. What's hard is overcoming your own resistance, isn't it? That's the hard part. Actually doing it when you're in the flow, that's not hard. It's your own resistance that's breaking that down, letting that go. That's the hard part, and that's why the hero's journey is difficult, because you've got to let go of your own resistance and your own separate self in the process. Deconstruct, your whole identity in the process, which isn't that easy. Sure, I'm dying here, and I want to continue living, and this is terrifying, and it's I'm going to my death. That's what the ego tells you. Okay.
What just occurred to me, talking about having quiet time, I used to meditate at 6 o'clock, and it was a really regular thing. I was doing TM at the time. Every night, 6 o'clock, with a great big group of people, we'd meditate. And it was such a lovely practice, because then it would set the evening off in a really good energy state. And I've stopped doing it. And so my nudge has just been to set an alarm on my phone for 6 o'clock every night to have quiet time. To actually come into my meditation room, change of state, change of place, and that's when the inspirations happen, isn't it? In that quiet space.
If they don't happen in it, then they happen often afterwards.
Yeah.
In a quiet state of mind, and then okay, well, I could be chopping vegetables as I was, or just going for a dog walk, or just sitting at your computer working, or whatever, and suddenly something drops in you. Wow. Okay. And those ideas are powerful. Those ideas can save you enormous amount of time and energy and trouble. They can bring in whole new business. Every business is an idea, isn't it? It starts with an idea. It can generate a whole new business, a whole new life for you from one idea. So what is that worth? I mean, so it's worth a bit of time, just to time out of your normal busy day to get the guidance. So it's about making that time. You actually have to make it a priority and say, I make the quiet time, because that's the foundation of my life. Without that, I'm lost. I can't listen to the guidance. I don't hear the inner nudges. And then I'm lost in the ego's world, and I'm not fulfilling my function. My life is pointless and useless if I'm doing that, because my only function is awakening, and I'm not fulfilling that. But then actually your life on the level of form will work better when you do that. That's the irony. It's not like you're being asked to sacrifice anything. Ego tells you, oh, well, that's a sacrifice. You're giving up that time. You could be doing something more useful, more productive. That's a story, isn't it? That's why we don't do it. But actually, that's not the case. Actually, if you do it, your life will flow forward on the level of form more easily, more beneficially, and you find that everything just works better. And you start living in this joyful flow. So whatever you're doing, you do with joy, and that's the whole point. And then the outcomes follow. You're no longer outcome oriented. You're process oriented. You're in the moment, in the joy, listening to the guidance, and that's a meaningful life. That's the only meaning life really does have, this being in the flow, being happy now, finding your flow now. And then there's no need to look to the future for fulfillment, because you have it right now. Isn't it so obvious? You think, how can we miss this? How can so many people miss this? The point is, find it right now, live in that state right now, and then you find meaning and purpose right there in the moment. You're experiencing happiness and joy and a sense of flow. And whatever comes, well, that's just a nice consequence of it. But in the moment, you're experiencing, that which makes life meaningful and that which connects you to your source. So that's happening, moment by moment by moment, the source coming through you, and then the source is living through you. The joy comes from source, love and peace and joy, everything that's valuable comes from it. So then it's living through you. And you're having an experience that is perceived through the eyes of spirit, experienced through that lens. Okay, so any other comments or questions on this? We've been over this many times, but the more you look at it, you just gives you a different perspective each time, and hopefully another renew your commitment to say, okay, well, yes, I'll just be better at this.
It's just very valuable to be in this energetic space, in this energy container, because in this field of energy I get so many more insights, and I think if I was listening to the recording of this, I'd probably be doing something else at the same time. So I'd listen to it have an earpiece in while I'm doing other things, so I wouldn't really be nailing it quite as much as being in the energy with you. And it makes a huge
that is the benefit of the live sessions. You're in it, you're immersed in it, you're completely immersed. You're not just dipping your toe in, you're completely immersed, and that's because you're in that frequency of energy. Things happen because it's a powerful energy. Things happen that wouldn't happen otherwise if your attention's not fully there. And we all know you can listen to stuff. Like I'll go for walks and I'll listen to stuff. It's not the same as if you're really intent on it, isn't it? It's kind of in the periphery. I suppose it's programming your subconscious. It's kind of going in on some level, better than nothing, maybe. But to really immerse yourself in it, you give it. It's the old Zen phrase: do one thing at a time. You give it its full attention. You're completely there. And then the benefits come. Okay, so anyone listening to the recording, join us.
Yes, please join us. There's so much fun.
There's only 2 of us. I mean, it's okay with 2, but if there's 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, who knows? There's just, I think the field will get more powerful. To a point. I don't know, maybe there's a point where it's diminishing returns, but we certainly haven't hit that by any means. So still plenty of scope for expanding it. Okay, so we'll have a conversation about that tomorrow, I think. Let's, for now, move swiftly on. We've got about half an hour or so. So shall we have a look at the lesson?
Yeah.
Okay, so lesson 327. If you read the original and then the alternative version.
I need but call and you will answer me. Alternatively, I only need to ask and perfect love will answer me.
Yeah, so use whichever version you prefer. I thought I'd change call to ask because it's more direct. I'm actually asking for guidance, and I'm asking perfect love, which is a memory in my mind. So this is, remember, the Holy Spirit is remembrance of perfect love. So I'm tapping into that presence, which I've forgotten, but which I can remember. And I'm asking that to answer me. Okay, and read the original. I'm not asked to take salvation.
I'm not asked to take salvation on the basis of an unsupported faith. For God has promised he will hear my call and answer me himself. Let me but learn from my experience that this is true, and faith in him must surely come to me. This is the faith that will endure and take me further and still further on the road that leads to him. For thus I will be sure that he has not abandoned me and loves me still, awaiting but my call to give me all the help I need to come to him. That's beautiful.
Okay, and then we'll just unpack it. If you want to stop after a sentence, let's do that. Anything comes to you.
I'm not asked to awaken on the basis of an unsupported faith. Yeah, I know. It's practice.
So what he's saying here, that is, he's saying you'll get the support. You'll see the signs in the dream world that that actually your faith is justified. The external world
practice.
mirrors it.
It's just the practice of it, isn't it? That you can, if you don't ask and don't practice it and don't look for the feedback system, then you'll never have your faith supported. Yeah.
Exactly.
When I went out for a walk this morning, I don't know if you remember, we talked about white feathers yesterday. I think it might have been about how come I know it's not true, but I still have the white feathers. And again, they were there today, and they were not so much spread around me, but they were like stepping out a path for me. So about every meter or less in front of me. So I was just going from one feather to the next feather, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And I was smiling to myself thinking, yes, if it had been a £20 note instead of a feather, I'd have worried, I'd have looked about, I'd want to think there was some trick to it. But because it was feathers, it was just like, that's just so beautiful, isn't it? And so peaceful. That's why it makes me very peaceful, that I am so supported by, something as simple as manifesting white feathers on a muddy path is just beautiful.
Whereas money is, it's so tainted with egoic energy, unfortunately, that it's often it's not a great symbol of the divine generally. It can be. I mean, I had coins manifest in my pocket, so anything can be used, but often it's related to that the whole thought system that invented it. So in truth, money wouldn't be required. There's no separations. You don't need a means of exchange if there's no separate entities to exchange between. Okay, so
what just come to me then? So my symbolic feathers on my path are like saying follow spirit, and if I had £20 notes on the path, it would be follow ego, wouldn't it? So yeah.
Well, depending on how you interpret it, but the problem is you would probably misinterpret the £20, and you go, oh, who's lost the £20? Surely someone must have lost it, and you wouldn't get this. It wouldn't be a good signpost, because you'd get distracted by the quantum of it. So the Holy Spirit will use those signposts that are most useful for you. And at that point, when I had that coin experience, that was useful, it was helpful. It wasn't about the money. I realized that. I realized it was just a sign. It was only coins. It wasn't like big notes. So, it wasn't like a big amount, but it was the principle. And I got, okay, you'll be supported. If you do this and you take the step in faith, you'll be supported financially. That was really so that's why the money was then used in that instance, because that was the big concern. How would I actually make money out of this calling? I had no idea. But that showed me, well, okay, trust, and you will. And 20 years later, here I am, still going. Haven't starved yet, so all good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Miraculous.
So you get the guidance, that you need at the time to make the decisions that you need to make to put you on your path, on your destiny path. As Joseph Campbell says, almost like the script is written here. What does he say? You put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while, waiting for you. The life you ought to be living is the one you are living. So it's almost like Yeshua says, the script is written. It's like that's your destiny path, is what you came to do, and it's kind of waiting in the quantum field as a potential until you activate it and you choose. And when you click into that, then you feel like, I really feel good. I'm following my bliss, because that is why I came. The script is written. I came to follow that script of awakening, of following my hero's journey to awaken in this life. And when I do it, there's something in your soul, in your mind that knows it and comes alive and goes, I'm on my path. I'm following my destiny. Even though I'm making choices, those choices are all guided. So am I really choosing, or is it just being done for me? The Spirit's just guiding me and it's all being done for me. I'm not really even choosing it. The highest level, do you realize that there is no free will? I'm just guided, and it's all being chosen for me. There is no choice really, other than to follow the will of God and the Holy Spirit. But that's the learning, isn't it? We don't get that straight away. It's like you need the experiences and the whole journey to learn that more and more. So hopefully by the end of your life, you've completely learned. You go, okay, there is no free will. There is no duality. There is no other will. There's only the will of God. And then the merging of the Father and the Son has taken place, and you're home through the journey that you've taken, the hero's journey. Okay, so next one, for pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Or pure formless awareness of perfect love has promised it will hear my call and answer me itself. I think there's probably lots of aspects of that for some people, that they've asked in the past in the egoic form and their answer hasn't been given to them. They've asked for help and not received it. So maybe there's some trauma in people that they daren't ask this great, incredible force because it might not respond.
Because then they think it's outside of them, but it's not outside of you. See, that's the whole delusion. I'm praying to some force outside of my mind. If you realize it's just your own awareness, then okay, well that should be pretty simple. If it's my own true awareness, it's not surely it couldn't be that difficult to ask my own true awareness for guidance. So that should, once you realize that, should get over that problem. So it's just my deepest awareness, who I really am. And of course I can ask for guidance. It's always there. All I've got to do is just go there and ask. Just become aware of that awareness. So that's the call, saying, okay, I want to listen to that awareness. I want to go there. There's a desire. Call or asking means there's a desire. Because we've desired something else, we must now desire, the truth. And that's the call or the asking. And when we ask, truly, sincerely, then it must be given, because it's in our own mind. Then our own mind answers us back and says, oh, finally, you're listening. Great. I've been trying for about 20 years. Finally, you're actually willing to listen. Great. Okay, so now here's, then the flow starts, and it starts speaking to you and giving you the guidance. It's always been there, but for so long you suppressed it and you covered it over and you denied it. Okay, number 3.
Let me only learn from my experience that this is true, and faith in this loving presence must surely come to me. Yeah, learning by experience, isn't it? Nobody can teach you it. Nobody can tell you it. You have to just, it's trial and error and getting it wrong, isn't it? And not listening, and then
The principles are one thing. You can study a book, any book, A Course in Miracles, till the cows come in. But if you don't apply the principles and see them in your own experience, it's a theoretical exercise. That's all. Oh, I have some theoretical knowledge. It's all intellectual, but it's not being applied. So does that really change your life? No, it doesn't. You look at, Helen Schuckman, good example. I don't think the Course really changed her life, because she didn't fully embrace it and apply it. So she's remained stuck in her ego for the rest of her life. Maybe there was some opening, probably, but by and large, she hadn't had a genuine transformation of mind, because she didn't embrace it. And it was just intellectual, theoretical. Yes, I understand it, I know it, but I haven't embraced it. I'm not living it. And,
but maybe she was maybe demonstrating ego there, wasn't she? She was a good teacher from that point of view, because we've heard about it now. We know about her resistance to change in any way and not accepting the Course in Miracles. But the people around her did. So you could see the contrast between them, which is a lesson maybe that teaching for us.
Yeah, exactly. So Bill Thetford really embraced it and he lived it. And by the end of his life, people said he was just this enlightened, really enlightened, gentle soul that had really used the Course to transform himself. And he was probably the first, proper Course student. She was the scribe, but he was the first student in the sense that he actually applied it and he followed the guidance. Okay.
Number 4.
So this is faith.
This is the faith that will endure and take me further and further down the road that leads to pure, formless awareness of perfect love. Yeah, just keep practicing it, isn't it? And keep.
And remember, that's where it's all leading, is to that awareness, which is nothing outside of you. It's just in your own awareness. It's the highest awareness that you're capable of. That's where all of the experiences are leading to.
Mm.
The goal is not external. It's not outside of you. You're not seeking for anything outside. It's just bringing yourself into that true awareness that you are. Becoming aware of what you are. Fully, wholly, and completely. So there's nothing else, because this is then excludes everything else. If it's pure formless awareness of perfect love, there can be no other awareness. That's, by definition, otherwise it wouldn't be pure and formless. And it wouldn't be perfect. So the descriptor tells you it's pure, right? So 100% untainted, formless. There is no form in it, and it's perfect, right? So it's to the max. There's no other awareness. There's no exceptions to this, which is why I think it's quite a good pointer, because it's telling us exactly what's required.
Okay, number 5. And so I will be sure that it has not abandoned me and loves me still, awaiting only my asking to give me all the help I need to come to it. Sure, it has not abandoned me. Yeah, that feels very, very egoic, hasn't it? It's like when somebody's father abandons them or something at birth. There's always the echo in the physical world, isn't there?
But we think, you see, all of our abandonment in this world, dramas that play out, is really just our own sense of being abandoned by God. So we've decided to separate. That's our own decision, and then we project that onto God, and we say, "Well, we've been abandoned, so it's not my fault; it's God's fault. God's abandoned me." You see how the ego does it. So then it's not a decision in your power anymore to change. It becomes, oh, I've been abandoned by God. And we see that very clearly in the Adam and Eve story, Garden of Eden. God's rejected you. You've been abandoned by God because you were bad, you're sinful. And it's something outside of you. Now there's no way back because it's outside of you. Whereas, the truth is it's your own decision to abandon God, your own true awareness. So all you need to do is change your mind. It's not a big deal. Just change your mind. Stop rejecting your true awareness, and then you won't feel abandoned anymore. What could be simpler, you think? But what a drama that we have to go through to realize this. So it's an awareness waiting there for you. It's always been there, just waiting for you to return to it. So simple. It's never gone away. Just been rejected by you, so it's been covered over and denied, and it's just waiting for you to accept it back. What could be simpler? And you start that process by asking. It's a process of, it's always been there. It is you, but you've got to start some kind of dialogue, some kind of communication, saying, okay, I'm asking for help, so that you activate it, and it starts to then go, oh, okay, so now it starts awakening and coming through from this dormant state. You're actually only asking your own true mind, but it feels like for a while you're asking something else, which is why the illusion is, oh, there's some other entity like the Holy Spirit, or there's God, or something outside of me. It's not really. It's just that it's alien to you because you've denied it for so long that it feels foreign. Okay, so do the prayer. Any thoughts on that paragraph?
No, it made me think that maybe there's something for me around feeling abandoned by my parents or rejected by my parents. So I'll give that some thought. Let it go.
Very common, yeah. I mean, abandonment, rejection issues for a lot of people are a big factor in their then development. So that program gets put in at a young age, and then that influences their entire life subconsciously. They don't necessarily realize it, but they've got this subconscious program. I'm abandoned, I'm rejected, I'm not good enough. It's part of that. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy story. And it's the healing of that, which is really the healing of your own decision to abandon God, to reject God. You see, that's actually what you're doing.
Yeah.
As you're seeing through the charade, the ego, you realize that that's not the real problem. The real problem is you decided to reject God. So if you can get to that point, then there's like an aha. Oh, okay, I see. It's not really about, my parents. It's actually about my decision to reject or abandon my own source. Oh, okay. So now you're focusing on the real issue rather than smoke and mirrors that are clouding the real issue, which then cuts through all of the ego's BS and just gets you to the core. And that's why this is a brilliant path. It's just so quick, so direct. You don't have to go for 10 years of psychotherapy about your parents. You just have to realize the real issue is not your parents. And you can do that in a moment. That's when I did a session with Sue. She came to that realization. It was like, oh, I get it. I see. And now I see what the real issue is. Ah, brilliant. Okay. And so then poof, the issue's gone, because you realize that's not the issue. And so no more drama. So simple.
So for me, what's coming up is it isn't that I feel abandoned or rejected by my parents, but I've got this, I've had this desire to leave a spare bedroom available for either of my children if they ever want to come home. And it's like, because I didn't have that as a child, I wanted to provide it for my children so they didn't feel rejected. It's interesting.
Yeah.
To right the wrongs of your own childhood.
Yeah. Well, if it's never happened, then maybe you can just let it go and go, all right, well, just drop that story program.
Yeah, I'll get my spare room back. That'd be good.
Okay, so if you read the prayer, and then we'll go into a meditation, shall we?
The original again?
Or yeah, read the original.
Father, I thank you that your promises will never fail in my experience, if I but test them out. Let me attempt therefore to try them and to judge them and to judge them not. Your word is one with you. You give the means whereby conviction comes and surety of your abiding love is gained at last. That didn't flow for me at all. Let me try the alternative.
Try the alternative.
Oh, that was sticky.
It's quite old-fashioned language, and then he's also using the passive. You give the means whereby conviction comes. It's a passive rather than active. So,
okay.
I've changed that from the alternative.
My source, I thank you that your promises will never fail in my experience if I just test them out. Therefore, I will do so and not judge them. Your message is one with you. You give the means whereby conviction comes to me, and I become sure of your eternal love at last. Yeah, that was far easier.
A little bit better. Making it flow a bit better, which is kind of the whole point, isn't it? Talking about flow, you don't want the language to stick.
No.
And sometimes the language is beautiful. I mean, it's not always this. Sometimes the original language is wonderfully poetic, but sometimes he gets kind of clunky. It doesn't really work. So, yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just do it, just test it out, and
yeah, I mean, I changed
interaction.
all of it. Let me attempt, therefore, to try them. Wow, that's too, there's an attempt to try, okay? You know, as Yoda said in Star Wars, famous line, do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah.
You do it or you don't do it. Don't try. So do it. You know, I will do so. That's much stronger, you know, conviction. I will do this. I will test it out. Which means you start practicing this, applying it. Say, okay, well, I've got a situation. Let me ask for guidance. If I get the guidance, let me test it out. Let me do what it says, and let's see. And that's the only way you'll ever learn this course. That's the truth of the matter. You know, as it says, in your experience, that's a key thing. Let me only learn from my experience that this is true. You cannot learn this course theoretically. It's not something you could study in a university and go, okay, well, now, you know, I've got a PhD, doctorate, whatever, master's in A Course in Miracles, because I really understand it. And you know, I suppose you could try, be an academic, you'd be like a theologian, wouldn't you? This is what theologians do. But have you really learnt it? No. You know, can you actually apply it in your life? That's what it's for. It's not an academic exercise. It's designed to take these ideas, use them in your life, and then you see the benefits. And it's absolutely transformational if you do it that way. And then it's the most important book you'll ever read. It's not just a book. It's like, this is a course to change my entire mind and life, a transformational process I'm undergoing. That is the meaning and purpose of my entire life. That's how important it becomes to you. The book and the course is just the mechanism of that happening. To become sure eventually of your eternal love. That I am that love. No, I'm not loved. I am that love. I am love. I am that I am. I am that presence. And there's no doubt anymore. I just know it. That's knowledge. This is the end of the road once you know that. There's no need to practice what you already know. As Yeshua says, if you know that fully, then the need for practice is over. But while we're still human, you know, there's work to do, isn't there? Because do you know it fully? Do you absolutely know that you are divine love and that's all? Or is there just some lurking doubt in there? Just, you know, little aspects where you haven't quite accepted that yet. So that's, you know, where you have those exceptions, that's where the work needs to be done. Okay. So we do a meditation. You said you want to finish at past. Can we do 10 minutes?
10 minutes, I'll do, yeah.
Yeah. So just making yourself comfortable. Sitting with feet shoulder width apart, back straight. Cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. And the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle to lock the energy in, draw the energy up the spine into your heart center. Put one hand on your heart to connect with your heart space. And draw it all the way up into the crown of your head. So just scan your mind. Noticing any thoughts, emotions, body sensations going on for you. And particularly anything that feels at all negative, limiting, contracted, constricting. So if there's any problem in your life, any area where you need guidance, then bring that to mind. Just breathe into it. So with the breath, you bring in some space, otherwise known as light, true awareness. And that just kind of lightens the problem a bit when you start to look at it differently from a spacious perspective, which is not enslaved by the ego's viewpoint on it. So breathe in this divine energy, perfect love, to every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being, and call on it. Today's lesson is all about asking or calling to this presence in you. So say to yourself, I only need to ask or call, and perfect love will answer me. And it's answering you right now. So breathe in again. Top yourself up with air and this presence of perfect love as you listen to these words and commentary on this key idea from Yeshua. It says, I'm not asked to awaken on the basis of an unsupported faith. God, or pure formless awareness of perfect love, has promised that it will hear my call and answer me itself. So let me only learn from my experience that this is true. And faith in this loving presence must surely come to me. So exhale. Just blowing away any of this negativity, any thoughts and feelings and body sensations that are not coming from perfect love, that feel challenging, difficult, unpleasant, painful in any way, shape, or form. You blow them all away with the breeze of your breath. Imagine they're like dark clouds leaving you. They're going, gone to the nothingness they really are. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And just rest here. A few moments in this deep peace and stillness that come from letting go. It just says, let me only learn from my experience that this is true, that this presence of perfect love is always there, and faith in this loving presence must surely come to me. This is the faith that will endure, take me further and further down the road that leads to pure formless awareness, perfect love. So just breathing in this presence, breathe it into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is immersed in this perfect love. And say to yourself, and so I will be sure that it has not abandoned me and loves me still, awaiting only my asking to give me all the help I need to come to it. And so just connecting with this presence, deeper source, by saying this final prayer of the lesson, my source, my Father, if you prefer. I thank you that your promises will never fail in my experience if I just test them out. Therefore, I will do so and not judge them. Your message is one with you. You give the means whereby conviction comes to me and I become sure of your eternal love at last. And so everything we experience is the means to convince us that only love is true, that we are this perfect love that we've denied. We'll be given the means to allow us to awaken to this truth. This is the hero's journey. We will be guided every step on the way to our true awakening. So it is said and so it is done. So just rest here in peace and stillness for a couple of minutes of deep silence. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Just breathe in and out through your nose, observe your breath, relax, be still, and surrender to this presence of perfect love that's in you, that's always there to guide you. And always next 2 minutes of deep silence. So just gently coming back, some awareness of the body and the breath, senses of the world, and on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, notice how the stomach rises and the chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pause at the top of the inhale, scan your mind, notice any unpleasant, difficult thoughts, and remind yourself that I'm always guided. So there's no need to fear, no need to ask, and perfect love will answer me. Exhale out on the count of 2, letting it all go to the nothingness it really is, blowing it away like a dark cloud. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. And just rest here for a few moments in this deep peace and stillness. Anchor the state in, so stay here for the rest of the afternoon and evening. And on into tomorrow. And to help you do that, practice today's lesson frequently, ideally every hour, by listening to this recording, the shorter breath break recording I've sent you, and listen to one of the longer meditations, either this recording or send you a half-an-hour one to listen to this evening sometime. So wish you good practicing and a very guided, connected, and inspired flowing day ahead. And on the count of 3, open your eyes and continue on with your day in this hopefully much more flowing way, much more guided way. That brings us to the end of the session, and
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you for all the miraculous miracles that downloaded to me today. Much appreciated.
Yeah, only a pleasure. So look forward to some more tomorrow. Are you up for 12 o'clock tomorrow? Let me know if there's a problem with that. We could make it later if you want.
Let's go for 12 for now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right. See you then. Bye.
You then have a lovely evening. So that ends the session. Next session is 12:30 tomorrow. So join us then in the Zoom room, and wishing you much peace, love, and flow in the meantime. Namaste, which means the guided self in me acknowledges and honors that same guided self in you.